Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for market intel, forecasts, and strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Bull. Thank you for joining us. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Check it out. It is incredible training for commercial brokers. Well, today our topic is technology and commercial real estate technology, and it seems to be all the buzz it's been for years. And I think it's an interesting topic because it's changing commercial real estate and how we work. And we hear about a lot of technology, but are we all using it? Are we using it correctly? What's the new technology? What should we watch out for? What should we look at to try to bring into our business? Whether you own properties and control properties or you're a vendor around the industry, the more we know about tech and stay on top of it, the better. Well, please welcome my guest. It's Michael Beckerman, and Michael is CEO of CRETech and the News Funnel, and he's joining us on video. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Michael, thank you so much for having me on your 500th show. This is a really important show. I'm delighted that I'm the featured guest for such a milestone.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Is that true? Is it really your 500th show?
Well, see, it's 9 years, 52 shows a year, October 2nd. Now we're at the end of the year, so it's a lot of shows.
I've been following you for, I think I probably have seen every show. Might have missed a few along the way, but I'm a huge fan, and it's great to spend time with you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about technology with your audience.
Yeah, and you, with CRETech, you stay on top of the technology every day, and you also had a lot of events around the country. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers have been to some of your events. So you're involved with it, and I just want to see kind of where we are, get some tips, maybe some strategies, some new technologies out there, and kind of see where things are going. And as you look at the technology world for commercial real estate overall, what do you say some of the trends are? I mean, one of the technologies, I guess, that we all see out there is the systems that track properties, right? The systems that kind of like multiple listing services or systems that kind of say who owns and what's going on in the market. And it seems like there's a lot of those systems and technology out there. What are you seeing in that space?
Well, it's a great question, Michael. So if I just took a step back and talked about sort of where we are in relationship to where we've been. So when I got in the sector, say 2011, 12, just to give it some historical perspective, there were, let's say, a dozen or so startups in the space. There was about 25 million invested in the space. And fast forward today, there's been about 7,000 startups that have gotten funding. And this year, there'll be about 25 billion invested in the space. So we've clearly made an extraordinary amount of progress. But, I think we're following some natural patterns in emerging tech sectors. The first is that you attract innovation, which we've clearly done. The second is funding, which we've also done pretty successfully. And now the third is adoption. So when I think about like where the adoption is today, it's still clearly lagging because the sector just overall doesn't have a lot of physical infrastructure to be able to vet and adopt technology. And what I mean by that is you don't have the people and the processes in place in order to effectively adopt a lot of these emerging technologies. But there's a few that have broken out, whether it's VTS on the leasing side or honest buildings on the construction side. There's many that are also on the deal and asset management side, such as Juniper Square or DealPath. So I think you could look at, and there's also some platforms like CRETech that are coming along, and also by proxy and 10X, of course. So I think you could look at it and say, within the sector, several parts of the industry are scaling faster than others. And those are the ones that I think are in 2020 going to really start to accelerate in growth.
Yeah, and you mentioned people adapting and using these systems, and how much of that is a problem for some of these startups that are introducing technology to the commercial real estate world, and how many of these systems have actually failed or not really made it and have already shut doors?
Well, I think if you had a venture capitalist on the show, they would tell you that probably 95% of their investments are going to fail, right? Which
Mm.
is just sort of like a going in strategy with a lot of these VCs, but and uh, and the startups know that. But there's been a few failures, but I think what we're going to start to see in 2020, 21 is I think you're going to start to see some M&A in the space where those startups that have gotten a lot of funding, that have gotten that have built some critical mass, are going to look at the landscape and start to understand that they could acquire other firms that have good technology, good ideas, but lack the funding and the customer base. So customer adoption is still the hardest thing in the space, and it takes a lot of time. Most of these venture firms will also tell you that, when they're thinking about their investment horizon, it's probably about 10 years. So considering that this past year was probably the tipping point in terms of CRETech, you could start to understand that we're still in very, very early stages, probably the first or second inning.
Wow, that's interesting. Because I would think of technology moving forward a little faster than that today. It's interesting to hear you say that. And Mike, if you will, go back to kind of the listing services, if you will. What do you see for trends there?
So I do think that the one big opportunity, and I think what to look for in 2020 is the concept of somebody building, quote unquote, for lack of a better terminology, the Zillow of commercial real estate. So a platform that both tenants and landlords and brokers will be able to lease and buy, sell properties online. You'll still, obviously, the broker is indispensable in the transaction, and you'll absolutely need professionals around the transaction. But I think what you're going to start to see is parts of the process will be, quote unquote, disrupted by technology. Maybe a better word is enhanced, facilitated. And I think platforms is going to be the place to see that. Companies like VTS, I mentioned CRETech, by proxy. I mean, you look at what happened on the residential side, and there's no reason why that's not going to happen on the commercial side. 90% of all home searches start online. It's inevitable that that's going to eventually come to commercial, and I think that'll be one of the big market segments in 2020 to look at. And I'm sure CoStar will come in as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me that aren't in real estate, and some people that are, look, is there a national listing service for commercial real estate? And there's hardly even one, really local. When you think about commercial real estate, it's a pretty big word, right? Like even in our shop, we have out at on market right now some properties that are $85 million, and then we have some properties out there that are $8 million, and we have some that are $800,000. And those owners of those smaller ones and the stuff for lease and for users, you'll want them out in a big market area. But some of these properties that are $85 million, they don't want it in these kind of big marketing systems. They want to direct things. So you look at all the different property types and the different wishes and desires of some of these owners, especially when they're selling. It's going to be interesting to see if anybody could ever really put together something that really encompasses everything. When a lot of our sellers are like, no, you go to private, go to the top 10 buyers in the country only, or go to the top 100 only, and make this very private. What do you see for challenges for these technology companies? You mentioned, getting adoption of these. Is that really the main challenge, or how about is competition an issue for them?
No, Michael, I think to your point, I mean, listen, I don't have to educate you on how the industry works. You're one of the top professionals in the entire country in the industry. But I think if you look at our industry, and most industries reinvest about 8% of their total revenue, their total cash flow, into innovation. The commercial real estate industry invests less than 1%. So there are many, 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 many pieces of the transaction that are inefficient, starting from search to financing to documentation, closing. I mean, it's too cumbersome and it's too complicated, and that's what technology is going to eventually impact. right? So I don't think it's a question of the real estate broker is going to go away or the developer is going to go away, but the sector will get streamlined and more efficient as a result. So the only challenge, really, knowing that, is who at all these real estate companies is going to be responsible for researching and then vetting and then onboarding the technology. It's not about competition. It's just about skill sets and prioritizing it right now. We're the biggest industry on earth as measured by global GDP, and yet we're the least innovative. So we need, and that's why I've been doing a lot of speaking at universities, we need young people, we need tech people, we need people that are passionate about innovation to come into the industry, or those in the industry just to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'll be the one that'll champion this effort and this program for our company. Because all the outside forces are not going to wait for the industry to catch up. Your tenants are all using technology, and many of the professionals are using technology. So we as an industry, and that's my main mission, that's why I'm doing this every day, have to get in front of this, or somebody else will. Yeah. And that's what you've seen in a lot of other industries where technology came in, whether it's music, whether it's movies, whether it's retail, whether it's travel agents, whether it's, I can go on and on and on. What is our industry going to do with all this knowledge? Are we going to future-proof ourselves, or are we going to keep our head in the sand, and then it's going to be too late because someone's going to say, I didn't see Amazon coming. Well, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned future-proof. What do you say, Michael, and what do technology companies say to the commercial real estate industry participants that that are a little concerned? I talked about, some properties actually go out private. Some of these companies are really concerned about their information kind of being out there. We're hearing every day in the news about cybersecurity issues, right, with ransomware in cities, in hospitals, and things having huge problems. How much are the technology companies considering cybersecurity as they bring these products out? Zero. If you're listening to the show, Michael's got a big zero on his hand up here.
Well, you've talked to me about this in the past, and you're right to bring it up. We as an industry are not doing enough, and it's scary because you need one breach where a corporation's data and information is hijacked, for lack of a better word, and broken into, and that's going to set us back big time. And you look at just all the breaches that have happened in the banking world and in social media. Well, it's inevitable. It's going to happen, unfortunately, and we're not prepared. So, thank you for bringing it up. I hope you'll talk about it more on your show and in our industry, because we need to do more.
Yeah, and Michael, I want to ask you about some of the technology that you're seeing out there in retail and office, and maybe in marketing, and some other places you're seeing technology, and give us some examples. But we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Michael Beckerman with CRETech. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com.